Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Sight for White, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Saturday the 29th of October 2022. My apologies for not recording last week. Being half term, I took the time to take a week off with my children and enjoy some more family time. We did pop over to find some sunshine and we all had a very relaxing week. I'm delighted to say that Kevin has now settled in well as the new sensory service manager for White Sense and the charity manager for Sight for White. He's been spending time with each member of staff, seeing what their roles entail and offering any help and advice that he can. This week, we also say goodbye to Martin, our apprentice. Martin's been with us, completed his qualification and now moves on to pastures new. Thank you, Martin, for all of the work that you've done for us. And finally, a huge thank you to Susan and Jasmine and Janet, who accompanied the members the week before last on the holiday at Warner's in Yarmouth. It was enjoyed by everybody and a new date has already been set for next year. So if you are interested in joining us, please don't hesitate to let us know. Further information will follow in the newsletter next month. Wishing everybody staying safe, Lisa, CEO, Sight for White.
Hello, this is Steve with a story from Isle of Wight Radio, headlined Isle of Wight MP rules out role in PM Rishi Sunak's cabinet. The Isle of Wight's MP has said he certainly won't be going for a role in new Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's cabinet. Bob Seely admitted he isn't a careerist and is instead focused on delivering for the island. After being invited to form a government by His Majesty the King, Mr Sunak is expected to reveal who will be on his top team by Tuesday afternoon. However, it doesn't look like the island MP's name will be on the list. Speaking to Isle of Wight Radio, Mr Seely said, "It certainly won't be a cabinet position and it probably won't be a ministerial position. Look, if someone said to me the only job you're going to have in politics is MP for the Isle of Wight, I would die a happy man. Preferably not tomorrow, but whenever. I'm not really looking for anything, and to be honest, I'm not a careerist. I didn't support either side because of what they can do for me. I supported either side because of the qualities they have as a minister, their personal qualities, and what they can do for the island." With both Penny and Rishi, we had people who knew the island pretty well. Penny comes over to the island on a regular basis and is a Portsmouth girl. Rishi, OK, he represents a seat up north, but he's a Southampton kid. Mr Seely, who supported Miss Mordaunt in the race, said he was sad but optimistic. He said he believed they were close to getting the support they needed. "We were nearly there," he said. "But look, a miss is as good as a mile. If we weren't there, we weren't there." Rishi Sunak promises to earn trust and fix mistakes in his first address as Prime Minister, while outgoing PM Liz Truss used her farewell speech to promise brighter days ahead. It's understood Jeremy Hunt is staying on as Chancellor.
Shopkeeper threatened with knife in attempted robbery at Sandown discount store. From Island Echo, read by Joyce. A man from Brightstone and a man from Sandown have been arrested following an attempted robbery that occurred at a discount store in Sandown. Police were called at 13:41 to a report of a robbery at Sandown discount store on Sandown High Street. Multiple police vehicles responded to the address on the busy road. Hampshire Constabulary have confirmed that a man had entered the discount store with a knife in his hand and threatened the female behind the till. Both men tried to get away from the scene by attempting to hide in the nearby abandoned Ocean Hotel. However, they were quickly located by officers. Nothing was stolen from the shop. A 29-year-old man from Brightstone has been arrested on suspicion of attempted robbery. A 22-year-old man from Sandown has also been arrested on suspicion of conspiracy to commit robbery.
This is an article from the Island Echo, read by Terry. Green light for 149 new homes to be built on land at Gunville. Plans for a new housing development in Gunville on the outskirts of Newport have finally been given the green light by the local authority, 14 months after they were previously rejected by the council. Over 2 applications, 149 houses can be built on land off Arthur Moody Drive and Forest Hills over the project's lifespan, although final details for 113 of the properties will still need to be approved at a later date. Full permission has been granted by the Isle of Wight Council's Planning Committee for the other 36 houses. Of the 149 homes, 52 properties will be designated as affordable. The application was first heard by the Planning Committee last August, but was thrown out due to concerns over access and the impact on the local highway. Developers behind the scheme, DN Associates, carefully addressed the concerns and submitted revised plans this April. They hoped to address concerns including updated transport data and a new access point through the neighbouring Ash Lane scheme. As a result of the changes, Island Roads, as Highways Authority, accepted the proposals and gave provisional support. Objections were still received, however, over the highway's impact and the introduction of double yellow lines around the current estate, which would see on-street parking removed and replaced by parking spaces in the new development. Representative of Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council, Councillor Matthew Ambrosini, said the changes had been framed as a silver bullet, but in actual fact achieved very little, requiring unfair double yellow lines to impact current residents and spread the negative impact onto another area of Gunville. Ward Councillor Joe Lever, said nothing about the application had addressed the council's previous concerns, and he viewed the latest plans as a roll of the dice. Planning Committee member Councillor Jeff Brodie said it seemed to him people were more concerned about where they were going to park their car instead of whether other people could have a roof over their head. He said the council would build on brownfields, but was going to have to bite the bullet and address the housing need by building on greenfields. Councillor Brodie said previous issues had been addressed, and he proposed to approve the applications. Planning permission was agreed with 5 votes in favour and 3 against. Sandown's Councillor Debbie Andre said a recent study showed some of the island's current housing stock was substandard, and this was an opportunity for new homes to be built to modern standards.
This is Alison reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio entitled NHS Strikes Edge Closer as Latest Industrial Action Ballot Begins, says Unison. Around 350,000 NHS employees, including tens of thousands across the South East region, are being asked to vote for strike action over pay from Thursday the 26th, says Unison. Porters, nurses, security guards, paramedics, cleaners, midwives, occupational therapists and other NHS staff across the rest of the UK are joining 50,000 Unison health employees in Scotland, whose strike ballot has been live since the beginning of the month. Unison said, "The most pressing issue for the new Prime Minister and Health Secretary is without doubt finding a solution to the many problems affecting the NHS. If, as Rishi Sunak says, he wants to strengthen the NHS, ministers have no option but to build upon the rise of £1,400 awarded to health workers in England earlier in the summer. A second wage increase that better protects staff against the ravages of inflation and helps the NHS hold on to the many leaving for more lucrative, less challenging jobs elsewhere would make a world of difference. Commenting on the strike ballot, Unison General Secretary Christina McAnee said, "Striking is the last thing dedicated health workers want to do. But with services in such a dire state and staff struggling to deliver for patients with fewer colleagues than ever, many feel like the end of the road has been reached. The NHS is losing experienced staff at alarming rates. Health workers are leaving for work that pays better and doesn't take such a toll on them and their families. If this continues, the health service will never conquer the backlog and treat the millions desperately awaiting care. It feels like the NHS is in the last chance saloon, but a vote for industrial action might be the jolt that convinces ministers to make the NHS the priority they say it is. Strikes across the NHS this winter are not inevitable. The government must start to tackle the growing workforce crisis with an inflation-busting pay rise and get the NHS back on the long road to recovery."
Hello, this is Steve with a story from Island Echo, headlined, Southern Vectis announces fare increase in response to rising running costs. Southern Vectis has announced that it is to bump up its fares from next week in response to significant increases in running costs. The island's bus operator says that the cost of running bus services across the Isle of Wight has risen, which in turn means that the company has had to review the cost of its fares, a decision not taken lightly. From Monday 31st of October, single adult fares will increase by up to 30 pence, and child singles will increase to short hop £1.50, medium hop £2.10 and long hop £2.70. Period passes and multi-trip bundles will also increase. However, the £10 adult day rover will remain unchanged. The biggest increase to hit the pockets of passengers is the adult 90-day freedom passes via the Quay, which has gone up by £25 to £275. The company has also announced that it is to discontinue its The Quay system from next summer. As part of this, it is scrapping the option to buy 7-day freedom passes via the Quay from Monday, although the passes are still available via the app and on paper. The fare increases for tickets purchased using the Quay Smart Card are more expensive than those purchased through the app. However, even app fares have increased by between £1 and £16.
Branstone Farm Project wins prestigious Central South Business Award. From Island Echo, read by Joyce. Branstone Farm, the new sustainable development in the heart of the Arraton Valley, was named Construction Project of the Year at this year's prestigious Central South Business Awards. Judges praised the innovative scheme for its cohesive, vibrant and sustainable locality that is of real and lasting benefit to the local community, although the site is yet to be occupied by residents or businesses. On receiving the accolade, joint site developers, the Isle of Wight Council and Vectis Housing Association paid tribute to the substantial contribution from key stakeholders involved in the project. This includes Trevor Jones Consulting, Stonehams, Arid and ERMC, among others. Chris Ashman, the Council's Director of Regeneration, said, "I am immensely proud of the whole team that has come together to take this important regeneration project from an embryonic idea to what we see today. By whole team, I would like to take a moment to recognise the endeavours and commitment of all our stakeholders and partners and every individual. Together, we have overcome unexpected challenges as we innovated and implemented the scheme, but also shared the celebrations, be they small or large scale. And wonderful achievements, such as this Central Business South Award. It belongs to every single person who is an essential, important and valued part of this team. Brandstone Farm acts as a template for regeneration and sustainable development within the Isle of Wight biosphere. Key to the development is affordable housing for island people that will see energy-efficient homes thoughtfully designed to complement the natural settings of the semi-rural landscape. The first residents are due to move in at the end of October. There are also business units with the Isle of Wight Chamber of Commerce as the initial tenant, a new brewery and visitor centre for the island-based Goddard's Brewery, and a new open green space for all to enjoy thanks to the careful curation of The Common Space. Martin Pearl, Chief Executive at Vectis Housing Association, added, Brandstone was always envisioned as offering the opportunity to create an extraordinary project. It would bring together high-quality homes with training, employment and the natural environment fully reflecting the principles of the Biosphere designation awarded to the island. We were delighted when the local authority bought into this and came on board to form the Brandstone Partnership. Together, this has demonstrated that a collective vision focused on delivering what is best for the island can achieve great things. We wanted to produce an exemplar scheme, and I believe that this is what we have done. It is an added bonus to receive this award as an indication that this view is shared more widely across the sector and the South East region.
This is an article from the Island Echo, read by Terry. Sheep trapped in mud on a rising tide, freed by firefighters. Firefighters worked to free a sheep that had become stuck in the mud on a rising tide at Corfe Lake near Shalfleet. Whole-time and retained crews from Newport were mobilised to the scene on the Newtown estuary at around 6:40 in the evening on Tuesday the 25th of October. Once on the scene, it became clear that Sean had got himself well and truly stuck in the thick mud. Using specialist equipment from the Animal Rescue Unit, such as mud mats and an air lance, firefighters successfully freed the farmyard animal. The sheep was soon reunited with his friends, and fire crews were able to stand down from the incident, but not before a good hose down.
This is Alison reading an article from On the Wight entitled Isle of Wight residents urged to remain vigilant following reports of courier fraud. Police say they do not want anyone to fall victim to these scammers and are taking steps to inform residents of courier fraud so that they are aware of this type of contact and can avoid becoming a victim. Police are urging residents in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight to remain vigilant following a number of recent reports of courier fraud. The crimes commonly involve an unexpected call from someone who purports to be a police officer, a staff member from their local bank, or an employee from an internet or phone provider. They then tell the victim that their account has been subject to fraudulent activity or is in danger of being closed, and then request the victim assist them with the ongoing investigation, with this involving being asked for details about their financial accounts and bank cards, being sent to their bank to withdraw money, or being asked to buy high-value goods, or granting the caller access to their computer or phone by downloading an application. Officers received three reports of potential courier fraud incidents in the Southampton area this week. A woman in her 60s from Southampton, a woman in her 60s from Hythe, and a man from Hythe all received phone calls from someone claiming to be a police officer from Hammersmith Police Station in London. They were asked to provide information about their financial accounts. Thankfully, they believed it was a fraudulent phone call and put the phone down. No information was given. Officers are investigating these incidents and inquiries are ongoing. Acting Detective Inspector Marcus Mills from the Economic Crime Unit said, "We know that offences of this nature can have a significant impact on victims, both emotionally and financially, as they come to terms with the financial losses after falling victim to a scam. Thankfully, the people who reported the incidents to us realised the calls related to a potential fraud and hung up before giving any information. We do not want anyone to fall victim to these scammers, and we are taking these steps to inform residents of courier fraud so that they are aware of this type of contact and can avoid becoming a victim. If anyone receives a call of this nature, they should not engage with the caller and hang up. We are wholly committed to investigating offences of this nature and will take steps to identify and bring those individuals responsible to justice. Please remember that police officers, banks and other organisations such as HMRC will never call people in this way and ask you to withdraw money or disclose personal or financial information. If someone does do this, please hang up. It will be a scam. If someone calls claiming to be a police officer, ask for their ID number and police force. Wait at least 5 minutes before verifying details with the appropriate force and ensure the call has disconnected, as scammers will often leave the phone line open. A genuine police officer will not mind waiting while you check their identity. Your bank or the police will never send a courier to your home to collect cash, bank cards, PIN numbers, or other valuable goods. Never hand money or your bank card, PIN number to someone at the door to be sent off elsewhere. If you are a friend, relative, or carer of someone you think might be vulnerable to this type of scam, please speak to them about this advice. You might be the only person who can stop them from being scammed. If you or someone you know has been a victim of fraud, report it to us by calling 101. If a crime is in progress, dial 999. You can make yourself aware of this type of scam and how to protect yourself by visiting the Action Fraud website or by calling them on 0300 123 2040.
Hello, this is Steve, reading a story from Isle of Wight Radio, headlined Floating Bridge Freedom of Information Requests Submitted. Freedom of Information Act requests have been lodged following the Isle of Wight Council's refusal to tell islanders the details of its settlement on Floating Bridge 6. Questions have been asked of the Council, including how much the Council made, whether the Council signed a non-disclosure agreement over the settlement, and if so why, and how much the Council paid in legal fees during the action. The Council refused to answer, referring back to its original standpoint that no further statement would be made. A Freedom of Information request has now been submitted by the Isle of Wight local democracy reporter, as well as multiple island residents asking the same questions. The request could take up to 20 working days to answer. Late last week, it was announced the legal mediation process between the designers and builders of the £3.2 million chain ferry, Burnless Corlett Three Keys and Mainstay Marine Solutions, and the Isle of Wight Council had ended. It was said to have started in March this year, but the legal action was first mentioned by the previous Conservative administration almost 2 years ago. While the settlement was welcomed, the Isle of Wight Council has refused to disclose how much it was for. The authority says it was agreed between parties the terms of the settlement should remain confidential, and no party would make any further statement relating to the terms of the settlement agreement. East Cowes councillor Carl Love said he did not agree confidentiality was necessary, and after years of turmoil in the town, they were entitled to know the details. Councillor Joe Robertson, Conservative leader at County Hall, called the secrecy completely unacceptable. Councillor Cameron Palin, East Cowes Town Councillor, said residents were being kept in the dark, and it made him question the Alliance administration's post-election pledges to be open and transparent, instead making them look closed and deceptive. Members of the public have also been questioning how the settlement can be kept quiet when it has been taxpayers' money funding the troubled vessel.
Young Islander wins Institution of Engineering and Technology Apprentice Award. From Island Echo, read by Joyce. The Isle of Wight's Jared Newnham has been named the Institution of Engineering and Technology's IET Apprentice winner. At age 20, Ministry of Defence Aerospace Engineering Degree Apprentice Jared is currently undertaking a placement as an Airworthiness Certification Manager, where he is responsible for increasing air system operational capabilities through risk reduction and type design change embodiment. In addition to his main duties, Jared, who grew up in the Isle of Wight, has become a keen advocate for engineering within the local community, coordinating an outreach event to promote careers to sixth form students and mentoring struggling classmates. Outside of work, Jared has a keen interest in exploring the outdoors through hikes and amateur astronomy. On receiving the award, Jared said, "I can't believe that I've been chosen as the IET's apprentice winner for 2022. There are so many apprentices doing great things across engineering, so to be given this award makes me really proud." For anyone thinking about taking up a career in STEM, S-T-E-M, I would definitely recommend looking into apprenticeships. My placement with the Ministry of Defence has led to so many incredible opportunities, which I will look back on fondly and which will hopefully lead to a long and enjoyable career. The IET Achievements Awards exist to recognise individuals from all over the world who have made exceptional contributions to the advancement of engineering, technology and science in any sector. This can be through research and development in their respective technical field or through their leadership of an enterprise. Professor Bob Cryan, IET President, said, "This is a fantastic achievement for Jared, who has been making great waves in the world of engineering, despite being so early on in his career. It is inspiring to see that Jared is using his passion for STEM to teach others about the opportunities available to them, increasing awareness amongst members of his local community."
This is an article from the Island Echo, read by Terry. Prolific shoplifter with over 25 previous offences handed suspended sentence. A Sandown man who stole over £1,000 worth of alcohol has been given a suspended prison sentence, but not before already being convicted of 25 previous theft offences. Richard Sullivan of Fort Mews in Sandown pleaded guilty to 3 counts of theft from a shop when he appeared in front of magistrates on Tuesday. Anne Smout, prosecuting, told the court that on 3 occasions between the 28th of August and the 11th of September, Sullivan stole alcohol from Sainsbury's in Newport, totalling £1,135 in value, just like he did in 2021 when he stole 10 bottles of Jack Daniels from Asda. The first incident on 28th of August saw Sullivan steal £400 worth of drink. Then, on the 2nd of September, he stole £385 worth of alcohol, and on the 11th of September, the 47-year-old stole a further £350 worth. On all 3 occasions, Sullivan went into Sainsbury's, filled up a bag for life with alcohol, and left without paying. He was brought before the court after he was spotted on CCTV. Probation told the bench that the thefts were a result of family pressure and financial struggles. It was detailed that he has 25 previous convictions for theft. Defending, Barry Arnett said that Sullivan and his family had just been evicted from their home after the landlord wanted to increase their rental fees by £600. He also added that he was a full-time carer for his wife, convicted thief Angela Sullivan. Sullivan avoided immediate jail time and instead was sentenced to 18 weeks in custody, suspended for 12 months. He also saw his existing community order revoked and resentenced with a new 12-month order with 25 rehabilitation activity days.
This is Alison reading an article from the Island Echo entitled "Girl Arrested for Assaulting Police Back in Custody After Grafton Lane Incidents." A 17-year-old girl who was arrested for kicking and biting police officers last week is back in custody, this time on suspicion of burglary, using violence to secure entry, and assaulting police again. As previously reported by Island Echo, a teenager was arrested on Tuesday following an incident at an address on Grafton Lane in Sandown. She was arrested on nearby Pierce Street and taken into custody on suspicion of assaulting an emergency worker. However, the teen is now back at Newport Police Station following 3 incidents at the same address. Police have confirmed that they were called at 0140 hours to reports of a door being damaged, with reports received later that morning of further damage to the door. Then at 17:28, police responded back to Sandown with reports that a window was being smashed. A 17-year-old girl was arrested on suspicion of burglary, criminal damage, using violence to secure entry, and assaulting an emergency worker. She remains in custody at this time.
This is the second part of the Talking News, read by Jerry
and Rosie.
Before we start the second part of the Talking News, here is this week's Society News 28th of October. Swimming resumes on Monday at Medina Leisure Centre, Newport, at 1:15. The cost is £5. Our Tuesday yoga sessions at Millbrook House, the cost is £3 and runs between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. Refreshments served afterwards. Coffee and Chat is on Wednesday at Millbrook House. The cost is £1 for coffee and cake, and everyone is welcome to come along. If you fancy a go at horse riding or tandem bike riding, as advertised in the newsletter, please call the office for more details.
Our monthly lunch club will be back on November the 8th. Lunch will be at the Medina Quay, Sea Close Park, Newport, at 12:15 p.m. Transport is available on request. God's Hill Coffee Morning is on Tuesday the 1st of November at the Old Smithy. God's Hill, starting at 10:30. All very welcome to join us. Our monthly book group will be meeting next Thursday, the 3rd of November, at their new home of Lord Lewis Library, Newport, at 2 p.m. All welcome to attend. If you are interested in any of the activities and events, please do not hesitate to contact the office on 522205. A message from Terry Mitchell. This is a reminder for you to return in either your red or blue Talking News wallets, if you have any, as we are recently receiving low deliveries of them due to post office strikes.
Letter prompts allegations of Tory hypocrisy. A letter from the leader of the Conservative group on the Isle of Wight Council alleging a cover-up has drawn a robust response from council leaders. Last week, Councillor Joe Robertson sent an open letter to Council Leader Laura P.C. Wilcox setting out his serious concerns about the figure paid to the Isle of Wight Council to settle the dispute over Floating Bridge 6. Remaining a secret forever, he said, "I am sure I speak for the vast majority of islanders when I say that this is completely unacceptable," adding, "This all looks very grubby." He also alleged that the problems with the vessel were the fault of councillors involved in ordering the vessel, and who are now members of the Alliance Cabinet. Yesterday afternoon, Thursday, the Alliance Group issued a point-by-point rebuttal of Councillor Robertson's allegations and claimed his letter was littered with misinformation, assumptions and hypocrisy. Confirming no settlement would have been possible without commercial confidentiality. The statement also revealed that the previous Conservative administration had signed their own non-disclosure agreement which settled a multi-million-pound contractual dispute with the PFI highway contractors. The NDA was authorised by Councillor Robertson's fellow Tory councillor Ian Ward. It also pointed out that the independent reports had confirmed no councillors were involved in the tendering contract for the floating bridge. And in 2021, a Conservative majority scrutiny committee accepted that there were no issues with the approach taken to procurement, tendering and contracting. Councillor Phil Jordan said, "I cannot help but comment on the utter hypocrisy and dual standards on display in Councillor Robertson's misplaced comments regarding NDAs. The Conservatives believe it is perfectly in order to enter into commercial confidentiality agreements whilst in office, but object to them when not in office. I'm sure the public will make up their own minds about such hypocrisy." Councillor Robertson accused the Alliance of being vague about the NDA details and said, "I don't see how I can respond. If the other party is supposed to be Island Roads, then there will have likely been the additional issue of how to preserve an ongoing contractual relationship long into the future, which didn't apply to the floating bridge situation. But I cannot possibly speculate on a hypothetical." A number of freedom information requests have been submitted about the floating bridge settlement.
Secrecy surrounds floaty settlement. The councillor in charge of bringing an end to the floating bridge dispute, with a settlement and non-disclosure agreement, insists going to court was not an option because it would have meant 3 more years of discussion, costs upwards of £8 million, and no guarantee of winning. Transport lead councillor Phil Jordan spoke to the county press this week after facing a barrage of criticism from fellow councillors and the public over the secret deal. He said, "No non-disclosure agreement, no settlement. The commercial sector would not offer or settle without the confidence of confidentiality." He has revealed professional advisors are due to be working with leaders at County Hall from as early as November to consider future options for the Cowes to East Cowes Medina crossing. Since its launch in 2017, itself long delayed, the chain ferry has suffered mechanical and electrical faults. It was most recently out for maintenance in September. Last week, a short statement announced the sudden end of a dispute involving the council and Burness Corlett Three Keys, Southampton, and Mainstay Marine Solutions, the firms involved in the design and building of the floating Bridge 6. Unhappy councillors called secrecy about what had actually been agreed a totally unacceptable gagging order and grubby. The authority's strategic finance lead has revealed even he does not know the details. Councillor Chris Jarman said, "I remain unaware and uninvolved in any discussions regarding the financial or other terms of the agreement, have not seen any of the settlement documentation, and am unaware of any schedule of costs or payments. No one has raised with me the question of how any sums arising from the settlement will be proceeded in council finances, our internal audit, service, or during the impending external audit." East Cowes councillor Cole Love said he heard the news via local media, despite his long-running campaign for action. He expressed concern about a lack of transparency and said confidentiality was unnecessary. Councillor Love wrote, "After years of turmoil, we are entitled to be informed, especially when so much damage has been done to our community." In an open letter to council leader Councillor Laura P.C. Wilcox, Councillor Joe Robertson said, "I am sure I speak for the vast majority of islanders when I say this is completely unacceptable. The council is funded by taxpayers. The defective bridge costs £3.5 million to buy and millions more trying to make it work properly. Councillor Jordan says replacement parts have been brought in and a new ferry is among options being explored." He said commercial confidentiality is not ideal, but NDAs are not uncommon in the commercial sector. To get the settlement, be able to move on, and to get a sustainable solution for the next 25 years, we started the mediation process. Money for the bridge originally came from the Solent Local Economic Partnership. Councillor Jordan said that organisation would be happy with a sustainable, efficient and reliable service that reduced vehicle emissions.
Ferry Boss says why there's no lake cats. In the week that saw more than 3,000 people sign a petition to encourage Whitelink to bring back late-night sailings on the ride to Portsmouth Fast Cats, we asked the ferry operator for a response. Regular passenger Harriet Hadfield launched the petition on Sunday and has had a lot of support from frustrated islanders who feel the last crossing from Portsmouth, being as early as 8:20 p.m, represents a curfew on island life. The county press asked Whitelink why they had scrapped the later crossings and if they would consider bringing them back. Keith Greenfield, CEO, gave us a lengthy response. "I understand that people want Fastcat services to run later in the evenings. At Whitelink, we want to run as many services as we can, and we have 2-foot passenger catamarans, which we would like to be using all of the time. In 2019, we ran a trial of Fastcats running through the night. We are very committed to growing all of our services when it is viable to do so. Having just spent over £1.5 million on refurbishments for our Portsmouth Harbour terminal earlier this year, we definitely want to see more sailings and more customers on our Fastcat service. In line with the rail industry, there are still 40% fewer foot passengers travelling on the route at rush hours, and overall 32% fewer on all services. By contrast, vehicle traffic returned to pre-COVID levels this summer. Unlike the rail industry, Whitelink relies entirely on ticket income and not on taxpayer funding. This means our services have to pay their way. Our crew's working hours are fully used to maintain the current timetable, and to extend into the evening we would need to hire 2 additional crews and shore staff for what we know would be relatively few additional passengers each day at present. Although this is a point that I'm sure will be contested, we have detailed knowledge of travel patterns and study them closely. We have looked at other options to extend the timetable in the evenings, such as starting later. such as removing the first 1 or 2 sailings, the 5:45 and 6:45 from Ryde. We believe these to be lifeline commuter services, so we rejected this option, but I would be happy to hear if public opinion disagrees. Another option would be to create another 2-hour gap in the afternoon, so we will be able to cover 1 additional evening sailing. Again, our feeling that this option would not be acceptable. If public opinion says otherwise, we would look again. We want to get to a point where fast cats run later and more frequently, and examine trends every week for signs we can run extra services. I can promise we are looking at all the options, and additional services will be added as soon as we are confident of sustainable passenger numbers. We do have a round-the-clock car ferry service just a few minutes' walk from Portsmouth Harbour train station. There are sailings at 22:15 and 23:59, and the 23:59 is served on arrival at Fishbourne by a Southern Vectors bus that takes passengers to Ryde. I know it's not quite so convenient, but it is a way to get home after a night out. We also have car parking at Fishbourne for foot passengers to use the car ferry both ways. Fast Cat tickets and season tickets are always accepted on our car ferry. Everyone wants to see more Fast Cats and later ones, no one more than me.
Tribute to the Queen. A very special tree was planted this week in Pan Country Park by the island's Lord Lieutenant, Mrs. Susie Sheldon, with the help of some eager brownies. The silver birch sapling was one of the 350 that made up the Tree of Trees sculpture outside Buckingham Palace, and was illuminated as the first in the chain of 1,500 beacons to celebrate the late Queen's Platinum Jubilee on June 2nd. The Isle of Wight Council, as owners of the park, were also presented with the commemorative spun aluminium pot that the tree arrived in, which Leland Matthews, responsible for recreation in public spaces, accepted. Members of the 10th Newport Brownie Pack also planted another 12 trees elsewhere in the park, 3 each of rowan, hawthorn, dogwood and silver birch, with the help of Carl Dyson, Senior Ranger from Countryside Charity Gift to Nature. Graham Biss and Brian Friend of Gift to Nature also attended the event. The tree saplings were all part of the Queen's Green Canopy scheme, planned as a celebration of Queen's 70 years on the throne, but following her death has been extended to the end of March next year for people to plant trees in memory of Her Majesty. If you plant a tree in memory of Her Majesty, then you can add a marker to the map on the Queen's Green Canopy website, queensgreencanopy.org. There have been 59 trees planted so far on the Isle of Wight, which have been included on the map.
Later ferries now. Thousands signed petition calling for evening fast cats. A petition asking Whitelink to reinstate later crossings on the popular Ryde Pier to Portsmouth route has gathered pace. More than 3,750 people have signed it since it launched on Sunday morning. Currently, the last crossing from the mainland is the 8:20 p.m. departure, with check-ins required just after 8 p.m. to guarantee your ticket. This means an islander who travels to London for a day needs to leave Waterloo Station around 6 p.m. to catch the last Fast Cat crossing. It also means people can't enjoy a night out on the mainland without travelling back on the car ferry, which takes passengers to Fishbourne, not Ryde, or booking an overnight stay. It has led to claims of a curfew on islanders. The petition is asking for later evening sailings on the Fast Cat in both directions, including at least one after 10 p.m. every day of the week. Harriet Hadfield, Nettleston and Seaview Parish Councillor, started the campaign. She said, "I've been overwhelmed with the speed in which we've gathered signatures. It just shows the strength of feeling over this issue and how many islanders, and indeed mainlanders, have been affected by the reduced timetable." The petition asks people to add their experiences in the comments section so that I can collate the case studies for Whitelink. This will be in the hope that the real-life issues islanders face will make a difference. This petition will be sent to Keith Greenfield, Whitelink Chief Executive, when we've reached enough signatures. I will also send it to Bob Seeley MP, plus Portsmouth MPs such as Penny Mordaunt, who we know is sympathetic to the issues of cross-Solent travel. As a local journalist via my 5 Stories newsletter and Island Stories podcast, I receive so many messages about the problems of cross-Solent travel. It's undoubtedly the number one issue for islanders, and I believe vital to the sustainability of our island economically and socially. Harriet feels another issue is safety for passengers expected to walk through Portsmouth at night, perhaps alone, from the train station to the car ferry terminal. Then at the other end of the ferry crossing is the problem of getting to Ryde, where people have parked their cars or expected to get transport links from. Since COVID, Whitelink has said there isn't a demand for late-night fast cat sailings, but it is monitoring it. Find the petition on change.org or search for the link on countypress.co.uk.
Brannan's Beguiling Beauty. Northwood House hosted a fascinating weekend exhibition of over 250 rare and iconic and Isle of Wight prints from eminent artist, engraver and printmaker George Brannan. The collection is held by island historian Ken Hicks, and the weekend included a demonstration of how the engravings were used to produce a whole catalogue of images and scenes from between 1820 and 1862. High Sheriff Kay Marriott officially opened the weekend exhibition and was shown how cotton paper, after immersion in the water, was used to produce the prints from engravings that were hand-etched in fine detail. The detail would have had to have been reversed at a time when the only lighting available was natural and magnification limited. Volunteers at Northwood House believe that the George Brannan Vector Scenery Collection is the most comprehensive ever assembled and featured well-known locations across the island and highlighted popular beauty spots from a time when the island's population was a small proportion of what it is now. Fine art printer Karen Mead provided demonstrations of printing, with historian Tim Wander giving personal tours, with proceeds from the exhibition going to the Northwood House Trust.
The Isle of Wight has been named the second most haunted county in England, just in time for Halloween. A new study analysed over 10,000 entries on the UK's paranormal database and found 72 hauntings per 100 square miles on the island, beaten only by Greater London with 115 sightings. Dorset came third with 42. A researcher said, as Halloween approaches, there's no better time to experience the thrill of being frightened. Widely recognised as one of the world's most haunted islands, the Isle of Wight is tormented by a host of poltergeists, apparitions and spirits. This tiny island, occupying just 127 square miles, boasts an array of historic homes and imposing castles. Ley lines, which run below the island, are thought to increase the psychic potential for paranormal sightings. Avoid visiting Appledurcombe House after dark. Constructed in 1702, this formidable home was built on the site of a former monastery. Shadowy entries are frequently spotted in the cellar, and some report being overtaken by a carriage from a bygone age when visiting the house. Another haunted venue is the site of the long-demolished Knighton Gorges Manor near Newchurch. One of its ghosts is said to be Sir Tristram Dillington, MP for Newport, who committed suicide in 1721 after losing his townhouse in a game of cards. His townhouse was Seal House in C Street, Newport, spookily now owned by another former island MP, Andrew Turner. The ghost of Sir Tristram rides the spirit of his horse Thunderbolt every year on the anniversary of the MP's death on July the 7th. Seal House also has its own ghostly resident, a little red-haired boy. Mr. Turner said, "I've never seen the apparition who is supposed to appear in Seal House myself, but I have met people who claim to have seen him." The research was carried out by property experts Buzz Capital.
A helping hand for vulnerable islanders. The Isle of Wight Community Rail Partnership has been given a helping hand thanks to a £42,800 grant from the Isle of Wight Council's Connect for Communities programme, which previously awarded a £66,000 grant at the start of the pandemic. This extra funding will allow the Gaslight Cafe at Sandown Railway Station to continue to serve free hot meals twice a week and provide food on the move, a weekly delivery of fresh and non-perishable groceries to vulnerable families in the Bay Area. Community Rail Manager Bobby Locke said, "We are thrilled to receive this additional funding from the Council. It is so important for our vulnerable local families at what is a worrying time for them as we head into a difficult winter." Ali recently received a special recognition award at the Community Rail Partnership Showcase in Southampton for going above and beyond with her dedication to tackling social isolation and poverty in the Bay Area. Laura Hales, the Council's Connect for Communities project manager, said, "Food on the move is a well-used and needed service in the local community. It's great to see the additional funding is helping those that need it." Councillor Debbie Andre, Cabinet Member for Children's Services, said, "This is a wonderful programme, not only helping to provide hot meals and distribute food to people who need it, but tackling social isolation with a friendly face and a chat. Well done to everyone involved in this project. It is making a real difference to people's lives."
New lease of life for Topshop building. A shop in Newport could be returned to its former glory. The former Wadham's store in St James's Square, which became Topshop in recent years, has been empty for over a year now after Topshop went into administration. The property has now been sold and work has caught the eye of many islanders who have visited the county town. Plans have now been submitted to restore its Victorian facade as close as can be to the state it was in when Wadham's owned it. The shop was opened from 1869 but closed after almost 130 years of trading in 1990 when Topshop bought the building. It is thought the building, which used to be in the shape of an L and emerged into Newport's High Street, where Trespass now is, dates back to at least 1714 when it was an inn. The original shop front was removed by Topshop according to planning agents ERMC, who said its current frontage is of poor architectural quality. The building is not listed, but it is in the Newport Conservation Area, and the proposed work would benefit the local historic character, ERMC said. The work, if approved, would entail the removal and replacement of the external sign, new doors, added cornice mouldings and removal of modern additions dating back to the early 2000s. There are no further details in the planning documents to suggest what the new shop would sell.
Free postcards in Newport's shops. Newport Business Association has agreed to support the NHS's printing costs to publish 5,000 new local artists' postcards. The project was first launched during lockdown and featured postcards of artwork by local artists, which were distributed free to island residents and NHS workers. The scheme was originated by NHS employee Steve Double and has been recognised as making a difference to islanders' health and well-being during lockdowns. He said, "The postcards are a way of keeping in touch with family and friends all over the world, and people really like the scheme. It also gives our local artists an outlet to showcase their work." The Newport Business Association has grown with more than 40 members who have been driving forward positive schemes when times for small independent traders have become challenging. Small local independent shops will stock the postcards, which are free. So far, 40,000 postcards have been published, with work contributed by 11 artists.
Criminal damage prompts call for more police action. Members of Lake Parish Council are continuing to call for more police action following a spate of incidents in Lake and across the bay last weekend. The most recent bout of antisocial behaviour came at Lake Cliff Gardens, which saw the public toilets vandalised with the graffitified message, "Isle of Wight Council is trash." Councillor Paul Brading, parish chairman, said, "We've seen the vandalism of the toilets in Lake Cliff Gardens, graffiti on signs and other locations. This follows incidents at Battery Gardens, and we are working with Sandown and Shankling to secure a meeting with the Police and Crime Commissioner." Lake is currently investing in new toilets on Lake Cliff Path, as well as consulting on plans for a new facility at New Road, and is encouraging residents to report any incidents to the police. Councillor Whittaker, Vice Chairman, added, "The ongoing antisocial behaviour of a mindless few add to the costs of providing services, as well as stops us investing in new activities and services. And we're talking to the police about possible stronger local presence. There has been an increased police presence following incidents on the railway as well as criminal damage at derelict properties in the bay." Councillor Brading concluded, "We need to work together to deal with the issues, not just move them from one location to another, and we are already in talks with Sandown and Shankling to share resources as well as meet with statutory agencies."
Staff let go as New Close bar closes. New Close Cricket Ground has announced its bar and cafe will close. The decision, a spokesperson for the popular venue for hire off Blackwater Road said, has been made by the owner and trustees. A spokesperson for New Close Cricket Club said redundancies have not been offered, but members of staff have been let go. "It is with a heavy heart and huge disappointment that I have to announce that the bar and cafe will be closing on Friday, October 28th, said a spokesperson. "This decision has been made by the owner and the trustees. We are understandably upset about this, but we have to respect their decision. We would like to thank all our customers for supporting us, including our regulars who we have built friendships with over time. The venue will still be available for weddings and large events, and the 2023 cricket season is unaffected. Many islanders have expressed their sadness following the shock announcement. Martin Gardner, New Close chairman, said, "We are delighted to confirm that we continue to take bookings for weddings, parties, wakes, etc., which are unaffected. However, due to rising costs, the cafe and other largely unprofitable events are closing until the start of the new cricket season in 2023.
St Mary's blood test facility on the move. The blood test department at St Mary's Hospital is on the move. Today, Friday, blood testing will stop at 11 a.m. On Monday, the department will reopen at its new temporary location in the North Hospital building on the Isle of Wight NHS Trust site off Medina Way in Newport. It is part of a £38 million improvement plans, but it also means a smaller waiting room and reduced capacity. As the county press previously reported, blood tests are increasingly being carried out at GP surgeries, and the Trust says routine and non-urgent blood tests should happen there, wherever possible. Patients should use the North Car Park, signposted from the main entrance, where drop-off spaces and disabled parking is available.
Newport Game Store to move across road. The Isle of Wight's only game store, opposite McDonald's, will soon close amid its move to a larger shop. Newport's game store on St James Street will move across the road into South Street Retail Building, opposite Iceland. Game is owned by British billionaire retail entrepreneur Mike Ashley as part of Fraser's Group, who also owns Sports Direct, House of Fraser, Jack Wills and other retail brands. A temporary Sports Direct store next door to the regular shop has emptied stock and will close ahead of the imminent reopening of the original site following a lengthy refurbishment. The Sports Direct store will be on 2 floors, with sales areas dedicated to brands like USC and Adidas. It will also include a game section, seeing the closure of the St James Street store, The shop was formerly Game Station, which was purchased by Game in 2007. But following financial difficulties, all stores in the UK were rebranded as Game. The county press has been told there is no definitive date for the Game store to move, but it would likely be around New Year.
Swan causes pier chaos. Commuters were delayed on Wednesday evening after a stubborn Swan blocked Ryde Pier. Queues of cars could be seen stuck behind the Swan as it slowly walked up the pier. When the Swan reached the top of the pier, it decided to turn round and walk back down.
New special school planned for Ireland. The Isle of Wight Council, in partnership with Hampshire County Council, wants to build a new free school dedicated to special needs students. The multi-million-pound plan submitted to the Department for Education targets land next to Carisbrooke College, and up to 75 children with additional needs could benefit. It would offer specialist support and education for pupils aged between 4 and 16 with special education needs and disabilities, including autism or social, emotional and mental health conditions. Councillor Debbie Andre, Cabinet Member for Children's Service, Education and Lifelong Skills, said, "We feel that this has many benefits, both in terms of the health and well-being of our island children, especially those with special educational needs, and also in the reduction of carbon emissions, which supports our island's UNESCO biosphere status. At present, some children and young people from the island have to travel significant distances to access their special schools. This only adds to the stress both for them and their parents, and means that they don't always arrive at school ready for learning. A new centrally located special school would enable them to go to school close to their homes and with their friends, which would support their social and emotional well-being. In many cases, it would reduce travelling time and therefore the time spent away from home, which in turn would also give them more opportunity to socialise outside of the school environment to feel a valued part of their community. The island has the 5th highest number of pupils with educational healthcare plans across England, 1,450. By 2027, this is expected to grow, but the island has only 2 maintained special schools, both of which are full. Instead, the council is placing some pupils in more expensive independent placements, both here and on the mainland. The Department for Education has set aside £2.6 billion to deliver up to 60 new specialist free schools across the UK. A free school is funded directly by the Department for Education. An announcement on the successful bids is expected by the end of this year or early in 2023. MP Bob Seeley said, "Ensuring we have sufficient specialist placements on the island to meet need is vitally important. I am therefore writing to the Minister asking them to prioritise this bid."
Council forces support rewarded. Isle of Wight Council leader Laura P.C. Wilcox has been officially presented with the Gold Award for the authority's Defence Employer Recognition Scheme at a ceremony on board Portsmouth's HMS Warrior. County Hall announced it had won the award in July for its Defence Employer Recognition Scheme for employers who have signed the Armed Forces Covenant. Councillor P.C. Wilcox said, "I was both proud and honoured to receive the Gold Award on behalf of Isle of Wight Council. We've worked hard to show how much we value the contribution of our armed forces and are proud of our employment policies in relation to recruiting former services personnel. We are also strong advocates for our current forces families and also proud to support our reservist employees as part of the council family." Councillor P.C. Wilcox also praised the efforts of Isle of Wight Council's Jane Tyler for her dedication and determination in helping the local authority achieve Gold Award status.
Man charged with attempted murder of wife. An island man accused of attempted murder and killing a dog following an incident in Binstead will face a judge later this year. Michael Lee Orton of Newham Road, Binstead, appeared before Isle of Wight magistrates on Tuesday. The 59-year-old is charged with attempted murder of his wife and causing unnecessary suffering to an animal. A not guilty plea was indicated based on his mental condition. He is alleged to have slit the throat of Cora the dog, causing her to die. Police had been called on June 20th this year to an address of Newham Road. A woman had suffered injuries, but they were not deemed to be life-threatening. She was taken to hospital and has since been discharged. A man was arrested at the scene and subsequently taken to hospital for treatment for injuries sustained during the incident. Mr. Orton was remanded in custody to the Isle of Wight Crown Court on November 23rd.
Hotel takes hygiene rating up to 4 stars. A Shankling hotel is closing for the month of November for a refresh after a busy few months. The Brunswick Hotel on Queen's Road said it had recently achieved a 4-star hygiene rating after it was inspected and given just 1 star in September. It is also celebrating after being named in the AA Restaurant Guide for gaining coveted 1 Rosette status and winning TripAdvisor's Traveller's Choice Award for 2022. A spokesperson for the hotel said that these things come in threes, and that's definitely the case for us. We are shutting for November to give our team a refresh and allow us some time to give the business a little refresh too. If you haven't tried us yet, or even if you have, we have some wonderful events going on over the festive season. Call to book, and don't forget blue light card holders get 10% off of all of what we offer. The Vectis Corps of Drums is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, and what a year it's been. The island's carnivals were back in full swing following a few pandemic disrupted years, and the band attended many carnivals and events over the summer. Holly Deacon from Vectis Corps of Drums said the band members were overwhelmed by the appreciation that they have received after their performances. Members of the Vectis Corps of Drums pride themselves on being able to adapt their performances based on their audience. Together with the traditional band marches that you would hear at events such as Remembrance Parade in Newport, you will also hear more recognisable tunes such as the YMCA and Sweet Caroline at carnivals and other fun events. In recent weeks, the Vectis Corps of Drums have competed at the Shaftesbury Carnival Band Competition and were presented with a trophy for Best Band. The Shaftesbury Carnival adjudicator said, "This well-disciplined and smart band showed its mettle with a spirited and dominating performance from most players in the competition."
The Corps of Drums was extremely well drilled, and the overall standard of music, marching and counter-marching was very high. The lead snare drummer produced a very high standard of syncopated percussion. Many youngsters took part in the performance. The repertoire was popular, and a strong emphasis was placed on an audience participation, a feature well received by the spectators. The band members have returned to their weekly practice after a busy summer of engagements, and welcomed a large number of new members, varying in age and musical ability. The band would love to see any pictures and videos people have captured during the summer, carnivals and events. Feel free to share them to the group's Facebook page, Vectis Corps of Drums. The band will be holding its 30th anniversary presentation evening on November 19th to celebrate the contribution its members have made. As a charity, Vectis Corps of Drums relies on support from the community to be able to provide uniform, instruments and tuition for new members, and a GoFundMe page has been set up for donations. GoFundMe.com F Vectis Corps of Drums. The band will also be holding a fundraising raffle on December 13th, which has been well supported by local businesses.
Amusing tales from 1920s newspapers. Although the 1920s are 100 years ago, they're not so far away for some of us. My parents grew up in the 1920s, for example, and we still have a lot in common with those far-off days. As the saying goes, times may change, but human nature doesn't. These county press items from the 1920s illustrate the point. We start with a laugh from February 1920. How many people work at your place, Father? About half of them, my dear. There were even laughs in court. This report is from October 1920. Robin Jacobs of Newport was charged with cycling without a rear light at Honeyhill on the 10th. On the 10th instant, P.C. Butcher said he was caught and told he should have a rear light. He replied, "What for? I don't ride backwards." Fined 10 shillings or 7 days under the July 1922 headline, Parkhurst convicts amused at song titles. The county press reported, on Sunday afternoon, the convicts of Parkhurst Prison were provided with another concert by a party of vocalists from Newport. On the announcement by the chaplain of 2 of the solos, "How lovely are thy dwellings, and entreat me not to leave thee," an audible titter ran around the audience. In February 1926, we read, a hen belonging to Mr. George Martin at his yacht yard in Medina Road, Cowes, has recently formed a habit of daily visiting the offices to lay an egg on his table. Having duly informed those in the office with a cackle of pride at its performance, the hen rejoins its feather friends in the yard. In March 1927, 17 dog owners were summoned for failing to renew their dog licences. Frank Whittington of Carisbrooke told P.C. Homewood that his terrier had already had 2 fits and he was waiting for it to have the 3rd, when it would die. Fined 10 shillings, there were more courtroom laughs later that month. George Lee, gypsy of Barton's Village, was summoned for non-payment of arrears for the maintenance of his son, who is in a reformatory school. Defendant was sentenced to a month's imprisonment in 1925 for non-payment. Defendant said he would not pay anything and would never do. Old Mildgate, what does the man do when he is out of prison? Superintendent Salter. I had better not say, sentenced to a month in prison without hard labour. Chancelleur's fate was the headline to this September 1927 article. William Wynne of 15th Warwick Street, Ryde, pleaded guilty to keeping a noisy animal, to wit a cockerel, thereby causing a nuisance to his neighbours. Mrs. Florence Fuller of 12 Warwick Street said that on June the 2nd, as on many occasions, she was awakened at 4:30 a.m. by the crowing of a cockerel in defendant's backyard. The magistrate's clerk, "Will you abate the nuisance?" "Yes, sir, I will get rid of the cockerel." The chairman, the case will be adjourned for a week. If during that time the nuisance is abated, you will hear nothing more about it. Defendant, "Yes, sir, I'll boil it for dinner tomorrow."
Smoking was part of the culture, as this March 1928 report illustrates. Cigarette smokers will be interested in these facts about Player's Cigarette Factory in Nottingham, the largest tobacco factory in the British Empire. 400 tons of silver paper are used every week. An automatic device weighs cigarettes to the 100th part of an ounce. For 25 years, the builders have never stopped building extensions to the works. Cigarettes are now packed in 10s and 20s instead of 6s and 12s, because decimal counting is easier. 4 customs officers are always on the premises at Nottingham. Now a sticky moment in July 1928. A Vector's bus driver and his passengers were surprised to see a boy standing in the centre of Fairley Road, frantically waving his arms as the bus approached. The driver pulled up to find that the boy's shoes were so firmly stuck in a patch of asphalt, melted by the hot sun, that he could not extricate himself, and he had to be assisted to safety. In August 1929, news of the old curiosity shop in Cowes had reached London. The London Evening News describes the curiosities of Mr. W. Cole, of High Street, including a 4-legged robin found at Cowbourne, a 2-headed calf, a calf of 6 legs, a double-headed pig, a 3-eyed kitten, and a 1-eyed puppy. Finally, from October 1929 comes this uplifting story. Last summer, Mr. George Fisher, a porter at the Esplanade railway station, lost his terrier Jack as the result of a motor car accident. Jack was well known to the thousands who used the station, for he was a well-trained animal with a penchant for collecting pennies. His master carried the luggage of the West Wing College girls, and when the pupils there heard of this untimely end, their kindly hearts were touched. Mr. Fisher was presented with a dog's collar suitably inscribed, together with sufficient funds to procure a successor to Jack. The new arrival, a small terrier, has been christened Wing, as a compliment to his many godmothers.
Taking steps to end floaty fiasco. Another week, another Prime Minister. The Conservative Party has been an embarrassing laughingstock for quite some time now, but the Truss saga has taken it to another level. She wasn't even in office when I wrote my previous article for the County Press, so she's come and gone before I've even had the chance to have a pop at her. The spoil sport. Anyway, I won't bother wasting column inches or column centimetres, as we are probably forced to call them these days, writing about the Circus of Westminster. I will instead keep things local. When the collective of independent councillors took control of the Isle of Wight Council in May of 2021, the one solitary pledge they made was to sort out the floating bridge fiasco. And they have, well, at least the first stage. Credit must go to Councillor Phil Jordan, who first pushed for mediation and then pushed again for a higher settlement when the initial offer was less than £1 million. The former ruling Tory-run council had failed to even get the builders and designers around a negotiating table, let alone come to a settlement. But that's hardly surprising. The Tories seem to fail at everything recently. In fact, failing is the one thing they are good at. Rather than congratulate Councillor Jordan on bringing this whole mess to a conclusion, the current leader of the Isle of Wight Tories, Joe Robertson, who bears a remarkable resemblance to the Rick Mayall Tory television character Alan Bastard, chose instead to call the settlement grubby, due to the figures being kept confidential.
Do the Tories have no shame? We're all sick and tired of mud-flinging politics, and I for one would find it refreshing if a politician could, just for once, could have the good grace to admit when somebody on the opposite side of the political fence gets something right. I have no idea if the floating bridge settlement was kept confidential because the council asked for it, or because the builders, designers asked for it. But presumably when the council accounts are published, the figure will be there for all to see anyway. The settlement figure is obviously a substantial figure, as Phil Jordan is already talking about buying a new floating bridge. But as I have stated a number of times in the past, and I'll state it again now in capital letters, we don't need a new floating bridge. Yes, we need a passenger launch across the Medina, but not a vehicle carrier. This is 2022 and not 1932, when a bridge was needed to get horse and carts across the river. I only live 5 minutes away from the bridge, and I travel to the other side of the River Medina on a very regular basis. But I never even consider using a floating bridge. I simply drive around. It really doesn't take very long, even with the current inconvenience of temporary traffic lights in both Fairley Road and Horsebridge Hill. Not only do we not need a floating bridge, the council don't need another potential cock-up. So my advice to Councillor Jordan is to take the money, sell FB6, set up a permanent passenger launch and step away from the river.
Bob Seeley, MP for the island, writes, still working towards a better deal for the island. First, I'm sorry for goings on in Westminster. I know that islanders, like everyone else in the country, want politicians focused on delivering for what their constituents, and that is what I continue to do. I was sad that Portsmouth MP Penny Mordaunt didn't become our next party leader and Prime Minister. I am confident that Southampton-born Rishi Sunak will lead our country well. When it comes to delivering this month, I want to write about 2 new projects about to start. Both these are part of my pledge to get a better deal for the island. The first is the investment in St Mary's Hospital, and the second is the repair of Ryde Railway Pier. Both are part of over £120 million of extra investment in the island. In the NHS, in Island Line, in Isle of Wight College and in shipbuilding in East Cowes. Turning to St Mary's, after the multi-million-pound project was submitted, my role was to make sure ministers understood its importance to the island. I am delighted that they listened. The new facilities and the new £10 million diagnostic centre announced last week will help improve healthcare on the island for years to come. Thank you to all who worked on that bid and NHS staff who work there in the future.
Turning to Ryde Railway Pier, our first step was to save Island Line. Working with the Isle of Wight Council, we secured a £26 million commitment to upgrade the track, stations and buy new rolling stock. After that, I persuaded Network Rail to agree to repair the railway pier. Again, work starts in the next few weeks and should be complete by the spring. Apologies for minor disruption in the meantime. The council also successfully bid for millions more to improve Ryde Esplanade, Interchange and Ryde Pier. Thank you to councillors from all parties and council officers for making that happen. These are just a few examples of the £120 million of extra funding for projects for the island that will give us better life chances, better public services and better opportunities for islanders. I am delighted we have been able to deliver them. We're getting the better deal I promised we could. We are getting that better deal because I continue to work with the council and others as Team Isle of Wight for the common good. I wish you all a good weekend.
What's on? Saturday the 29th of October, Marcel Lucant, Britain's favourite French comedian, presents his greatest of... Sorry, I have no idea what that is. Okay. What's on? Saturday 29th of the 10th October. Marcel Lucant, Britain's favourite French comedian, presents his greatest works from the past decade. Expect deadpan with soaring miserabilist chansons and Gallic superiority. Key Arts, C Street, box office is, you can telephone them on 01983 822 490. Rocking the Isle of Wight R&R is at 9 p.m. at the Riverside Centre, The Quay, Newport.
Shivers and Shadows will be on Sunday the 30th of October at 2 p.m. and £8 per person. Performances at 11 a.m. and 2 p.m, 60-minute show. Get ready to shiver, shake, shudder and scream as Squashbox Theatre presents its first ever show for Halloween. At Key Arts, C Street, telephone 01983 822 490.
Journey's End is at 7:30 p.m. and the tickets are £10. It's the 1st of November to the 5th of November and it's at the Apollo Theatre. It's an immersive and moving play with as much resonance today as it has ever been back in 1928 when it premiered with Laurence Olivier. So that's at the Apollo Theatre.
Frankenstein, The Creation of a Monster, at 8 p.m, £12. An electrifying new adaptation of Mary Shelley's classic horror department, 29 to 30 Cross Street.
Friday the 4th of November is Bembridge Fireworks Night and it's at 6:30 p.m. Bembridge Fireworks Night will include stalls in the hall, food stalls outside, DJ and the bar will be open all night. Bembridge Youth and Community Centre, Park, Stane Road. 40 Towers Revisited is also on the 4th of November and it's at 7 p.m. Tickets are £35. The 40 Towers gang are back with an hilarious new show. Can Basil cope with social media, reality television and an invasion of tribute acts? Ryde Castle Hotel, Esplanade, and the info is at 01772 691 284.
ABBAmania at 7:30 p.m, also on the 4th of November, £26 per person. Europe's leading ABBA tribute, ABBAmania, continue to entertain audiences with their outstanding vocals and musical performance live on stage. Medina Theatre, Fairley Road, Info from fairleyroad.medina.theatre@isleofwight.gov.uk. Telephone 823884.
On Saturday the 5th of November, Hamlet's Adlib Theatre at 7:30 p.m. Tickets £8. Backed by popular demand is this tale of murder and revenge, love and hate, loyalty and betrayal, friends and on enemies, humour and heartbreak. It's Hamlet and it's your last chance to see it. The Jenny Kerry Performing Arts Centre, Ryde School, Upper Chine, 7 Queens Road.
On Sunday the 6th of November, an evening with Stuart Pearce, hosted by sports presenter Richard Graves, at 6:15 p.m, £29.50 per person. This is a fantastic opportunity for fans to meet one of the greatest defenders of all time. Stuart Pearce will take you on a real journey reminiscing about those glorious football memories, old and new, Medina Theatre, Fairley Road, or you can telephone 823884.
On Wednesday the 9th of November, The Death of King Arthur is at 8 p.m. Tickets are £12. The Death of King Arthur is a new version of a very old story, an interactive twist on the timeless tales of Arthur and his knights. It's at Ventnor Exchange, 11 Church Street. Telephone 01983 716 767.
Thursday the 10th of November, Dementia Afternoon Tea Club at 2 p.m, £5 per person. Dementia Afternoon Tea Club, Bembridge Methodist Church, 73 Foreland Road, Bembridge, 218318.
Friday the 11th of November is Tina Turner Live, a tribute show to Tina Turner, and it's at 7:30 p.m. at Shanklin Theatre, Prospect Road in Shanklin.
Cloud Busting, the music of Kate Bush, at 7:30 p.m, Shanklin Theatre, Prospect Road, Shanklin.
Noise Next Door, Hometown Heroes, is also on Saturday the 12th of November. The quickest wits in comedy are coming to town with a side-splitting evening of hilarious off-the-cuff songs, scenes and characters, and this is at Key Arts at C Street, and the box office is keyarts.org 01983 822 490.
Lovely Island. My wife and I visited the island recently for the first time and just wanted to say what a lovely, relaxing place we found it. One highlight was a trip to Ventnor, where we started at the magical botanical gardens that transport you into a different world, celebrating the magnificence of nature. Then embracing a walk on the cliff top along the coastal path above the rolling waves via a magical hidden steep hill cove. Followed by lunch at a cafe on the Esplanade, watching the surfers. We're planning our next visit to the island already.
Whitelink Rose. Last week I received the autumn issue of Island Link through my letterbox, and I have read it with interest and some irritation. In it you set out everything you have achieved in the last period, including the costs and all that you aim to achieve in the future. However, my irritation was sparked by the fact that I missed in your report any response to the complaints of many island people, including myself, that the last catamaran from Portsmouth Harbour is leaving as early as 8:20 p.m. It cannot have escaped you that many islanders have written to the county press about this customer-unfriendly early last departure, which not only leaves many travellers coming back from a holiday abroad stranded, but also people like me who would like to take some culture either in London or Portsmouth. When I moved to the island some 20 years ago, and up until the COVID period, there would be a catamaran that made it possible for islanders to see a concert in Portsmouth, Guildhall, and get back to the island using the catamaran. That was fantastic because it meant that we did not have to rely only on the sometimes limited culture offering on the island. Personally, I enjoy going to a matinee in London on a Saturday, getting an early ferry and train out, doing some shopping, seeing an opera, and then taking the train and catamaran back home. However, many shows in London do not finish until 6 p.m, which makes catching the train that connects with the last catamaran impossible. I'm sure that you realise that although islanders appreciate the upgrades you make to Whitelink's real estate, You would show your real appreciation of your customers if you were to offer them the option of a later ferry. I know that there's always the car ferry available to be used as a foot passenger, but that leaves you stranded in Fishbourne without a courtesy bus back to Ryde. I assume that Whitelink is a company that prides itself to provide excellent customer service. However, with the early catamaran time, you are letting your passengers and regular customers down. I know we are a captive audience, but I feel we need a little more respect and a little more choice from our main ferry travel provider. For a company like yours, it cannot only be about shareholder interests and bottom line. You are dealing with human beings who need and appreciate a bit more freedom to travel to and from the island. And you are in the unique position to provide this. I would be interested in hearing your views about this.
Solar farm thoughts. I was very interested to read about the plans for a new solar farm in Louise Hill's article on a 27-hectare site. I was pleased to see that residents in the area have already formed Wootton Against Solar to campaign against this development. It must be very tempting for farmers who are having a tough time to succumb to an offer of a regular income, but food security is yet another area where urgent action is needed by the government to ensure that we grow more food and cut imports. Solar panels should be on buildings, not productive farmland. It might be helpful if I suggest a few questions for Ridge Clean Energy. Although based in Oxford, they are an American company with a very impressive track record in this field and a strong, well-qualified management team, including Lola, the dog. Question 1. Are all their batteries made in China, who currently control 80% of global supply? 2. The industry standard for a solar panel's productive lifespan is 25 to 30 years, with a slowly degrading output, not the 40 years quoted, as sourced by Energy Sage. 3. Does their long-term plan allow for decommissioning and recycling the solar panels and the batteries? 4. As usual with renewable companies, their claim to supply thousands of homes is based on the full 21.45 megawatts capacity of the farm. This is not the average output over 24 hours. 5. Planting a few trees will not improve the adverse visual impact, and it is difficult to understand their claimed biodiversity net gain. 6. The Wootton Group should also ask about a performance guarantee.
Botanic favourite. M. Snell of Newport says, I felt I had to respond to Judy Bishop's letter, the County Press 14th of October 2022, regarding Ventnor Botanical Gardens. Yes, the gardens were more well kept when owned and supported by the Isle of Wight Council. Now they are different, but still provide a wonderful garden to visit, full of tranquillity and peace, not to mention the red squirrels and lizards which bring great pleasure to watch in the warmer weather. The council employed Mr. Goodenough and his wife to oversee the gardens, but I guess in order to save money the gardens were sold, and to make matters worse the bus service to the gardens was cancelled. However, I feel we are so fortunate to have such a garden, and it is my favourite place on the island to visit, which I do regularly. The same applies to my grandchildren when they visit me from the mainland, as it is one of their favourite places to visit too.
The never-ending carousel of UK politics. This is certainly a unique Conservative government. It seems to have a policy that gives its members their turn in the top jobs, then demands their resignation. Mind you, there are 340-something Conservative MPs still in the queue, with less than 800 days left before this government has to be dissolved. Nevertheless, by my reckoning, it's still possible for each Conservative MP to get around 4.5 days living in Downing Street before the winter of 2024/2025. After all, that's not much less than some of the others lasted. Assuming some truth in my opening statement, I wonder if Bob Seeley might suggest when he is likely to get the call, and indeed, whether he will be spending his 4.5 days in number 10 or number 11.
Floaty saga not democratic. John Nuttall of Ryde writes, "With the latest news, I understand that our councillors refused to say what the agreement was made between the different parties involved in the settlement of our new floating bridge. I cannot believe who these people are who make these decisions and ignore the public for their own reasons. It's not democratic, councillors. We employ you to act for us, which you seem to forget. I would expect the whole sorry saga to be published in full, so that members of the public, which you serve, can evaluate this." And it's goodbye from Jerry.
And goodbye from Rosie.
The In Touch programme follows. The court hearing about access services in supermarkets, parliamentary eye health event and swimming. Access services in supermarkets are, for some blind and visually impaired people, an essential service to gather the exact groceries you need. Services like assisted shopping, where a member of staff takes you around the store gathering items for you, are offered by a lot of supermarkets, but some were suspended during the pandemic. Oriel Britton decided to take Sainsbury's supermarkets to court when she had a problem with her local store in Bristol. Primarily based on the suspension of their assisted shopping service, we invited Oriel onto the programme to outline the problem she had and what happened in court. Demand for eye services is rising rapidly and the NHS is struggling to keep up. Well, the Eyes Have It is a partnership between the Macular Society, Fight for Sight, the Royal College of Optometrists and other sight loss organisations, and they held a parliamentary drop-in event at Westminster last week. They are calling for a national eye care plan to tackle the problems patients are facing. Our reporter Fern Lulham provides the details. Dr. Peter Hampson is from the Association of Optometrists. And swimming can be a great form of exercise for blind and visually impaired people, but keen swimmer Aletta Sellers contacted us when she had a problem in getting access. Provisions put in place at her local swimming pools. She tells us the responses she got, good and bad, and the presenter is Peter White.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. Tonight?
I'm going to dial it to the more advanced setting now.
Oh yes, now I've got a black splodge. Everything's very wavy.
There are 4 packets of coffee. Can you get the decaf one?
I mean, this just looks like a white bag.
The parliamentary event calling for a national strategy to improve eye health. Later, our correspondent Fern Lulham, who you heard there, will be reporting on a drive to get more MPs on board.
I've had a few quite bad experiences of men just grabbing hold of me randomly and being like, you shouldn't be swimming here, you know, you can't swim in a straight line, and really kicking off.
We'll be hearing what drove this keen swimmer to persuade her local swimming pools to provide a special lane so that she could pursue her sport. We'll be reporting on the responses she got, good and bad. But first, the latest attempt to try to revive a service which was initially withdrawn because of COVID and has only been restored patchily since. Oriel Britton is one of those visually impaired people who greatly valued the assisted shopping service offered by a number of supermarkets where a member of staff will accompany you round the store to help you do your shop. But Oriel has experienced repeated difficulty in using the service in her local Bristol branch of Sainsbury's since COVID restrictions are supposed to have been lifted. So last week she went to court and successfully argued that the reasonable adjustments to replace the service were inadequate. And Oriel joins me. Oriel, first of all, just explain what specifically it was that prompted you to bring this case.
Assisted shopping was officially withdrawn by Sainsbury's Supermarkets Limited on the 24th of March 2020. However, it was not available to me after that. Officially for at least 19 months. I next received it again on the 9th of February 2022.
So in fact, long after COVID restrictions were supposed to have been withdrawn?
Yes. Now, unfortunately, despite entering into substantial correspondence with the supermarket, which I have been a customer of for much of my life, attempts to resolve the matter in other ways were not successful. Sainsbury's introduced 2 alternative arrangements during COVID. These were that when people could only shop individually, disabled people were allowed to bring a helper with them. The second adjustment was what I call the remote list method. Namely, a person could come in with a list, wait while someone went round and got all the goods for them. Now, as regards bringing someone with you, this was deemed to be asking disabled people to make their own adjustments. And as regards the printed list, there are several choices. If you wanted, say, a savoury pie, there will be about 4 different brands and numerous fillings.
So the argument is that if you can't actually go round with the person every time an important choice comes up, you're not in a position to make it.
No, they'd have to keep coming back to you. Now, I proposed an alternative, which I called the parcel, which involved shopping assistants wearing PPE and swapping over the assistants after 15 minutes. The judge deemed that the remote list method wasn't really a reasonable adjustment because I'd found that it didn't work, but that once social distancing recommendations had been reduced from 2 metres to 1 metre plus, that the pass the parcel method would have constituted reasonable adjustment. Sadly, Sainsbury's were not willing to try the pass the parcel method.
Right. Now, we've heard that they offered the system of going round and taking your list round and do it, and you've explained why that didn't work. They've also asked people to call ahead to book a time to ensure that they've got someone to help. That's not unreasonable, is it?
No, booking assistance is something which happens in other industries, on the railways, on National Rail, for example. However, it's quite difficult to book assistance ahead of time, which I have no objection in principle to doing, if there's no way of booking it. If, for example, the phone isn't answered or if there's no booking system. I've had several threats since February this year that I wouldn't be helped with my shopping. I think it's fine to ask people to book in principle, but accept that they are not always going to be able to. And you have to have a method of booking. You have to have a booking system. You have to resource it. You have to notify people of it. Incidentally, during the pandemic, some of your listeners will say, well, why didn't they just switch to online instead? But we couldn't get those slots if we weren't on the government shielding list.
We did invite, of course, Sainsbury's to come on the programme. They didn't want to do that, but this is what they told us in a statement.
Throughout the pandemic, we worked tirelessly in unprecedented circumstances to follow government guidance and adapt our stores and operations to keep everyone safe. We recognise that in this case, the judge ruled our assisted shopping could have been introduced earlier. We're in touch with Ms Britton about her assistance needs and look forward to welcoming her back into store soon.
Oriel, what do you think of that? And are you satisfied with the result you've got?
I am satisfied with the result I got. For someone who was extremely vocal in the court all morning and kept interrupting the judge, don't do that. That's not a good idea. We need to defend the right of people with disabilities to have the support they need to shop. They don't need a food parcel. They need the appropriate support to shop and make their own nutritional choices.
Oriel Britton, thank you very much indeed. Now, for years, organisations representing visually impaired people have been calling for better eye care services, more comprehensive checks to prevent avoidable eye disease, and solutions to long waiting times for treatment. Demand for eye services are rising rapidly, with referrals from primary care up 12% since 2014. The NHS is struggling to keep up, and some patients are now on waiting lists for over a year. It's against this backdrop that the Eyes Have It, a partnership comprising the Macular Society, Fight for Sight, Royal College of Ophthalmologists, the RNIB and many other organisations, held a parliamentary drop-in event at Westminster last week. The aim? To highlight the partnership's call for a national eye care plan for England to tackle the problems patients are facing in getting the treatment they need. Fern Lulham was there for us. She began by asking MP Marcia de Cordova, visually impaired herself and hosting the event at Portcullis House, what problems she wanted addressed by a national eye care plan.
I want to see a clear plan to tackle the backlog in appointments and in terms of the support that people require. So I want to make sure it's adequately resourced and there are some clear goals and clear targets set to ensure that people that require support are getting it in a timely fashion.
And you talk about that national plan. As recently as July this year, the government rejected the idea of a national plan.
So that was back in July. We've had a change in leadership, and so it's really going to be down to voices, including myself, but also the sight loss sector as a whole, really calling on the government to look at eye care in a different way. There has to be that buy-in at the top. We have a strategy for strokes, there's a strategy for dementia, rightly so, and I'm not trying to draw any comparisons, but it can be done, and I think with the will, it should be done.
Well, if Marsha was right about that, it called into question what practical changes might need to be made on the ground to support it. Melanie Hingarani is from the Royal College of Ophthalmologists and proved well placed to give me some answers.
I think we're in a situation at the moment where the hospitals are really overwhelmed with delays and backlogs, and yet we have a huge amount of expertise and thousands of professionals in our primary care optometrists and could deliver a lot of the care and relieve that burden, but are not joined up in the system properly to do so. There's no real sort of clear payment or commissioning route to fund them to be able to do this, because they do have to be able to fit this within their business model.
Your website says that over a quarter of consultants are now 55 or over and therefore set to leave the workforce within the next decade. And it also says that most units are already reporting unfilled positions. So what needs to be done to tackle this problem, and how confident are you that that will happen?
I don't think we should continue with the same model. We're terribly hospital dependent, and we're also terribly doctor dependent, and actually we don't need to be. So there's a whole range of multi-professional people, both in the hospital and in the community, all of whom can do a lot more and work at what people call the top of their licence. In other words, delivering more medical care, even though they're not a doctor. But I think no matter what we do, we will need some more doctors, and we've just got to bite the bullet and do that. And there are so many different models in terms of things like community diagnostic hubs, where patients can come and have high throughput tests, and they can then be reported in what's called a virtual clinic. So the doctor or the decision-making nurse or optometrist can look at the data and make a decision. A lot of our decisions can be taken on the basis of numerical data like vision or eye pressure or pictures and scans of the back of the eye to make the decision. So it's a real way of delivering much greater volume of care, and from that route finding the patients who really do then need to be seen face to face. So I think we have loads and loads of solutions. The question is, how can we pump prime to get those in place? Because they don't magically happen. They will create efficiencies, but you need some investment and some resource to make a start.
Talking of tech, in one corner of the room at the event, Dr. Peter Hampson from the Association of Ophthalmologists was standing with a lot of very technical equipment and gave me an insight into the part it could play in the future of eye care.
So what we've got here is we've got an Optomap, which the one we've got here is just a wide field imaging technology. It gets a great big view of the inside of the eye, lets you see far further out than you can just by looking in normally. But the OCT technology scans through the layers of the retina and lets us spot things like wet AMD and glaucoma quicker and earlier in the process than we would otherwise, because actually we can see underneath the retina. It gives us so much more information, which is always the key. And from a waiting list perspective, if you walked into a practice and said, oh, my vision's gone a bit wobbly, there are a number of reasons that could happen. And the big scary one is wet AMD. That's the one that needs treating within 2 weeks. But there are other completely, not entirely benign, but pretty much benign reasons. So like a little bit of an extra skin on the top of the retina. In that case, that could just be monitored. The patient doesn't need to be worried. They don't need to go to the eye hospital in most cases.
As well as pressing for action to improve eye care, this event also aimed to educate about sight loss.
I'm going to dial it to the more advanced setting now.
Oh yes, now I've got a black splodge. Everything's very wavy.
Being registered blind and having very little remaining sight, I'm not sure I was the most suitable candidate to try out the virtual reality simulator of eye conditions, but hey, what's life without a challenge?
Shall we take you to our supermarket and get you to see the supermarket scene? Do you want to go and try and buy some coffee now?
I would love a cup of coffee, absolutely.
Well, you know, it's past midday, so you should probably stick to decaf. That's very important. There are 4 packets of coffee. Can you get the decaf one?
I've located the coffee. That's an achievement in itself. I mean, this just looks like a white bag. I can't see anything. I can see a coloured portion, which I'm assuming there's writing on, but I can't see what the writing says.
So do you think that's coffee?
It feels more like food.
Yeah, so that's some rice.
Okay, so I definitely don't want to put that in my hot water. I'd be having a meal instead of a drink.
Great, well done.
Fern Lulham reporting and participating. And next week we're going to be talking to Louisa Wickham, who is the first National Clinical Director for Eye Care in England, about her priorities in her new job. Now, swimming can be a great form of exercise for blind and partially sighted people, but swimming pools often not so great. Swimming in a straight line can be a bit of a challenge, as I've discovered myself, and it was that which prompted keen swimmer Alicia Sellers to get in touch with us to see if we could help.
Pre-COVID, you used to just be able to turn up and ask for a sort of single lane, just a private lane that you could swim up and down in. And it wouldn't take up much space, it would literally just be by the wall and you could have a really narrow lane, just big enough for one person. But sort of post-COVID, there seems to be a big shift away from that. And they've imposed sort of a traffic light system, which they haven't really reversed since COVID, where you swim up one side of the lane and down the other, which I find, really hard. I mean, I do actually swim, I've been told, in quite a straight line, but if I'm asked to swim in sort of two separate places, then I just get really confused and stressed quite easily.
So you think that they are just sticking to the rules that they made during COVID without necessarily still needing to do that, perhaps without really thinking about it very much?
Yes, exactly. I think even if they don't offer a single lane, maybe it's not always practical and the shape of the pool. I do understand that sometimes that just makes it a bit more difficult, but it's just having that kind of understanding, really. I mean, I'm thinking again back to pre-COVID, and I did used to swim just sort of out in the open with everybody else. But even at that point, I've had a few quite bad experiences of men just grabbing hold of me randomly and being like, you shouldn't be swimming here, you can't swim in a straight line, and it can ruin your swim, really. And when you don't have a dog or cane with you, people, they just never come to the conclusion that you might not be able to see. So it can be difficult.
So just explain what lengths you've gone to try to get them to make what the legislation calls reasonable accommodation.
About a year ago, I contacted a couple of swimming pools by phone and said I'd really like to come in and would I be able to have a lane. And at that point, they both quite firmly said no, that wouldn't be possible. And we were still going through, I suppose, the tail end of the COVID stuff. So I thought I'd just wait till that to calm down. And then I got in touch with them again via email this time. I asked if I could have my own lane, and one pool initially didn't respond, but I've had a positive response since then. But there was another pool they have responded, but quite negatively, and said that they would not be able to put a lane in and did not offer any other sort of reasonable adjustments or any kind of understanding that I might not be able to swim in the straight line or follow the traffic light system that they've imposed.
All right, let's give the credit to the one that has been cooperative. And I think that's the King's Standing Leisure Centre. Can you tell us what they've actually managed to do at your second attempt, as it were, to get them to help?
Yeah, I mean, I think initially it was just a bit of a misunderstanding, because I think it's King's Standing Wellbeing Centre have been, fantastic. They have put a lane in to help me in trying to maintain a straight line, and I think they've done a really good job. Their pool isn't a standard shape. Their staff are aware that I'm visually impaired, so I don't feel the worry that someone's going to come out of nowhere and I'm not going to have any backup or support from anybody. And obviously new to the pool, so they've showed me where things are and generally been really, really helpful. I mean, there are certain times to go at, but I think there are plenty of times where I can go, I don't feel like I'm limited or restricted.
But there have been others that have either not responded at all or just said a blank no.
Yeah. It's very disappointing, because the one in question that has responded very negatively was Windley Leisure Centre, and that is actually based in Sutton Park, where all the Commonwealth stuff was happening in Birmingham.
I should say we have tried to contact them twice. Certainly at the time of recording, they've not come back to us. Can I just ask you, why is it so important to you to keep up your water and swimming skills?
Swimming is one of those sports that actually as a, nearly totally blind person, you can do without a third person, or without an intermediary. And it's so rare to have a sport like that. I mean, I love rowing. Rowing is a big sport for me, and also I love open water swimming, but I have to kind of accept that, a third party to some degree is necessary when I'm doing things like that. But pool swimming, you can swim completely independently, and I feel really sad that maybe blind people don't know that the option is there to be able to go and swim independently, but we shouldn't have to fight for our right to swim. What's the purpose of teaching blind people to swim if you're not going to allow them to swim with everybody else? There's just no point otherwise.
Are you going to keep trying? Because I gather that this isn't the one that's closest to your home, the one that has been helpful.
No, I'm not. I'm going to cut my losses, to be fair. I appreciate that King's Standing have been so helpful, and I would rather swim in somewhere where I feel welcome.
Alicia Sellers, thank you. And that's it for today. Do let us know your thoughts on anything you've heard in tonight's programme. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk, leave your voice messages on 0161 836 1338, or go to our website, bbc.co.uk/in touch. From me, Peter White, producer Beth Hemmings, and studio managers Simon Highfield and Chris Hardman, goodbye.